Hello and welcome to Destructive Discussions, the podcast where we discuss the archaeology of invasions, tensions and conflict in first millennium CE in Europe. My name is Noah.
And my name is Seth.
And this week we will be talking about the first 200 years CE with a very specific focus on the original capital of the Dacian Empire, Samosata Regia, and its sister Roman town, Ulpia Traiana Samosata, as a facet for analysing the shift in power that came with the considerable and rapid expansion of the Roman Empire's frontiers during Trajan's rule. Let's get into it.
So we're here today, speaking from Canberra in the ACT, actually next to the world-famous Lake Burley Griffin, a lake ripe with not much, really, just kind of stinky water, but we've got a nice view of the bridge, the Parliament House, and of course, we can't forget the National Museum of Australia.
Yeah, I actually applied there a few weeks ago at the cafe.
Really?
Heard nothing back.
That's unfortunate.
Telling them I was an archaeology student didn't really get me any brownie points, I don't think. It was probably the 0 years of cafe experience that did it.
Yeah, that'll do it. I guess you're serving people coffee, not pottery shards. And don't worry, man, something will come around.
Yeah, what comes around goes around.
That's definitely what happened to the Dacians. We've got a bit to talk about today on the podcast, Noah.
Yeah, so we'll get right into it, actually. So, Samosata Regia was the capital of the ancient Dacian Empire, and it's still important today for a couple of reasons. One is its significance to our understanding of ancient Roman history, and two, the Dacians are the direct ancestors of modern-day Romanians, meaning they still have deep cultural value in today's society. So getting a proper understanding of their cultural background is quite important. This site is key to understanding Rome's assimilation with the Dacian Empire and the sort of temporary shift of power that gave birth to modern-day New Romania.
Yeah, and that crossroad of culture still stands out today in several small ways. For example, through their national language, Romanian, a Latin-based language, not Slavic like its bordering countries. The name itself, Romania, comes from Romanum, meaning citizens of the Roman Empire. By the end of the 1st century CE, the Dacian Empire had been a continuous looming threat to the Romans, and basically just a pain in the arse for the previous 2 centuries, threatening Roman hegemony along the lower Danube, bringing rise to the Dacian king, How do you say that one, man?
Decebalus.
It wasn't until... I still don't have that one either.
Which one?
Domitian's first attempt to delay the Dacian intrusion.
Say the part again, I can edit it out.
Okay.
So...
It wasn't until Domitian's first attempt to delay Dacian intrusion in 88 CE and later Trajan's conquest east of the Dacian Empire that power dynamics started to change drastically.
Yeah, and so analysing what happened here at the Dacian capital almost 2,000 years ago is quite an efficient way to look into the long-term effects of rapid changes in governing power. But we have to confirm that this power dynamic was really due to Roman intrusion.
Yeah.
So, located 1,000 metres above sea level, Samosata Regia sits on Gradist Hill, south of Orasti in Romania. Probably built at the beginning of the 1st century CE, was the last place of resistance from Decebalus, heroically defending his empire during the Dacian Wars, later at the beginning of the 2nd century CE. The first interest in the site occurred in the 1500s when local peasantry heard rumours of an ancient mountaintop town in the woods. It wasn't until the 1900s, though, that a mini gold rush took place among the locals, who were finding hoards of gold coins, also generating interest to antiquarians looking to expand their own collections. It reached such an extent, actually, Seth, that local military set up camp to prevent anyone from doing the same.
Really?
Yeah. Luckily for us, though, the common treasure hunter would discard anything that wasn't shiny gold. So, seeing as this is a late Iron Age site, lots of interesting metal artifacts were left behind. After that, formal research developed more traction, such as topographic surveys, descriptions of extant remains, and then in the 1920s, systematic archaeology excavation of the site started, commencing several long-term excavations, and might I add, even today, only 5 to 8% of the site has actually been excavated. So there's still plenty to discover.
Yeah, and these excavations have revealed a large complex of hill forts with limestone block walls, villages, hamlets, temples, and scattered farmsteads. A recent survey found that the site extends 5.5 kilometres, comprising of around 250 artificial terraces. Simon Stoddart, in his book, Fingerprinting the Iron Age, suggests that Samosata is organised in 3 distinct parts. A fortress built with the highest part of the landscape, sitting at 1,000 metres above sea level, surrounded by limestone block walls covering 1 hectare of land. There was also a ceremonial land, or a sacred area, where 10 to 11 rectangular and circular temples were found. And finally, the third functional part was an undefended civilian area laid over multiple terraces of varying size on the slope of the mountain. All three areas were connected with roads and mountain passes, and the site can be identified as a defensive military base through the structure of its wall. In W.S. Hansen's paper on the LiDAR scans of the site, they noted that the town consists of two reverments.
So you skipped a sentence.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, Murius Dacius.
Okay. Hold on, I'll go from here.
Yeah.
In W.S. Hansen's paper on the LiDAR scans of the site, they noted that the town's walls had Marius Dacius structures, quote, a distinctively Dacian defense design consisting of two reverments of ashlar limestone blocks tied together with crossbeams and infilled with rubble. Among the identified buildings include several timber house granaries, metallurgical workshops, the largest of which had 8 kilns, 4 of which were likely used for iron ore reduction, and the other probably used for bronze metallurgy.
Yeah.
On top of this, there was also a mint copying denarii, which, according to W.S. Hansen's paper, it ceased activity at Roman conquest.
Yeah, makes sense. So, multiple theories overall have been put forward, suggesting the origins of the structures, who built them, when, etc. As they do in fact have quite a complex origin, as you would imagine, as the ancient capital of a country, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Researchers Diakovisiu and Glodari put forward the initial site interpretation, saying that the site's chronological history is split in parts. Dacian rebuild of the partly dismantled hill fort before the Second Dacian War, followed by a Roman site renovation in 106 CE after Trajan had full control. Continuing with Roman control under Trajan died in 117 CE. Another researcher, though, Oprianu, questions the Dacian origin of the site and sees the hill fort as entirely Roman, built in 102 CE after the First Dacian War.
Really?
But this idea was also contested by Diaconescu from before, who postulated a more complex theory suggesting 2 phases of Roman military occupation, separated by a moment of Dacian occupation. At the time, though these theories were made, the whole nature of the site was still very unclear. It's spread across the entire mountaintop, heavily covered with shrubbery, trees, making it really difficult and expensive to analyse any other way than the most conventional sort of knee replacement by the time you're 60, digging in the dirt archaeology.
Yeah, the classic.
Most of these finds are, for the most part, unrelated to today's focus on showing military presence in the ancient capital, but definitely do show physical evidence for a previous rich Dacian site identity, the most eloquent example of which is collections of beautiful painted pottery, of which thousands of shards were found across the site.
And the recovery of Roman military inscriptions and epigraphic evidence recording involvement of at least 3 Roman legions, Adriatrix, Flavia Felix, and Ferrata, is what opened the discussion for the presence of Roman military construction on Summit Zagatusa, Regia, in the first place, and is what prompted the eventual use of the LiDAR scan to analyse the mountaintops for any other Roman military-related structures. To the previously mentioned dense forest covering 90% of the land, making it pretty hard to map out the site, using conventional methods.
So this LiDAR survey was actually commissioned by the BBC as part of a documentary on the application of satellite surveying methods on Roman archaeology. So perfect to find any evidence of Roman military activity that would suggest brutal Dacian decimation. I think just the fact that the BBC picked up this site for Roman archaeology goes to show Roman involvement.
Yeah, exactly.
So the study, though, had a baseline for what would identify as showing evidence for Roman militia in the mountaintops, quoting, "In the surrounding area, recognition of the presence of the Roman army is based exclusively on the location and shape of temporary camps. 2 new camps were identified as Roman through the study, one directly overlooking Samzegetusa on Sessalui Hill. This camp had a round corners rectangular shape very synonymous to that of Roman-style military camps. Its location is also strategically on a high ground, interrupting 2 routes connecting to the Dacian capital.
Right.
The second is situated a little bit further, 5.7 kilometers away on Cornu Pietri Hill, covering a well-known karstic limestone area whose characteristic dew lines of sinkholes are clearly visible on the LiDAR scans. The site covers the highest point on the hill, overlooking scattered Dacian settlement terraces to the east."
And see, these terraces are really interesting. See, a number of terraces scattered along the mountaintop were easily identifiable with the LiDAR scan. So several of the larger buildings found on the easternmost terraces were excavated, one of which found to be a Roman bathhouse. Surprisingly enough, these Roman-esque military camps were found all over the Oresti Hills, around Fucking Christ. Samizegatusa, but very rarely anywhere else across the ancient Dacian Empire. So, given the amount of troops recounted in the Dacian war stories, it seems odd that the military camps not found over a larger area. This opens the possibility that Trajan's army of conquest was actually a lot smaller than initially anticipated, or a lot more developed early on than we thought, with a very strong focus on the capital and potential widespread use of Roman special forces known as Vextillations, going on campaigns across the countryside.
Wow, okay, alright then. It's confirmed. The Dacians might have all graffitied Romans go home over the capital. It's actually noted in another book by Simon Stoddart that, quote, Samizegatusa Regia displays some characteristics and urban functions unknown in other similar indigenous settlements from the region. This could be another indication of Roman involvement, making the site seemingly different from other surrounding Dacian sites.
Yeah, but so overall, a fairly sad story for the Dacians is laid out for us today in the form of physical evidence of pre-Roman invasions, which Dacian sites identified following the iconographic evidence of the preservation of at least 3 Roman legions, and a LiDAR scan showing multiple Roman military camps scattered across the mountainside. According to Cassius Dio, the Roman garrisons left on the site were in charge of dismantling the local temples and deporting the Dacian survivors, showing that the Romans actually did have some respect for their enemies, the Dacians. A respect also observed through their representation back in Rome, in the form of well-composed, elegant statues lining Trajan's forum. W.S. Hansen's paper does correctly point out a discrepancy between the Roman history and what was found at the site, hinting at a quote, a deliberate exaggeration of the military efforts involved, serving as another form of propaganda to essentially boost Trajan's popularity, regardless of his obvious benefit from Domitian's downfall, who actually laid down the path to the Dacians.
Yep.
Trajan's column back in Rome is also considered, by many, a form of Roman propaganda, advertising Trajan's success as emperor.
The Romans eventually did set up camp several kilometers away from the ancient Dacian capital called Olbia Traiana Samizegatusa, located in the extreme southwest of the Intercarpathian part of Transylvania, and named after Emperor Trajan, erected in 106 CE, which is noted by Christian Gazdak in his book on the site, was confirmed after the discovery of a partly preserved inscription on the town's foundations.
But what has ever gone wrong with a bit of Roman infrastructure?
Okay, that's all we have today for today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more over the next couple of weeks. I think next week's episode will be on the shift of power from Romans to the Frankish Empire in Gaul.
Yep.
And after that, we have another discussion from 400 600 CE on the Huns and Attila. So lots of cool stuff in line for you.
Lined up.
Yeah. With that, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Keep on living in the free world, and remember, doot-doot-a-loot-doot. Doot-doot-a-loot-doot. You have to say the thing. You have to say the thing.
Why? Can't we just end it now?
No, you gotta. Doot-doot-a-loot-doot.